Leave your ego at the door and get ready to be raw. This is Strength to Overcome, where real men find their strength in weakness. Hey guys, welcome back to the Strength to Overcome podcast. I'm Ryan here with my co-host Matt. This is episode 20. We've reached the big Tuesday mark on our episode journey, and we've got some cool things to talk about today, don't we, Matt?
I am very excited that we've cracked this mark, and not only have we cracked 20 episodes, but we've done them consecutively. We have not missed a week, and we have faithfully maintained the groove. So thanks for being on the journey with me, brother. I know it's not easy to share, and it's not for everyone. So from my heart to you, just want to make sure everybody realizes that this is not a necessarily easy journey for either of us, but a little bit harder for you, I'd say.
Yeah, like we said, just being the avoidant type or introverted type that I am, it's definitely been a little bit tougher to stick with it week by week, but it's nice to have had that accountability from you. And even when Wednesdays roll around, I'm getting a text that says, "Hey, you ready to jump on and you ready to do it?" And I'm like, "All right, yep, guess we're doing it." So you've helped me stay with it.
Now, can you hear me over the lawn that's getting mowed next door? Am I audible at all or not?
Yeah, you got a little lawn care going on next to you?
Yeah, I mean, we do this once a week for 40 minutes, and this guy decides to show up next door and, make a lot of noise. So hopefully you guys can still hear me. But it's funny, here in Florida, as you might know over there on the east coast of Florida, if you don't mow once a week, then you've got grass that's knee high. And, in certain communities, you're going to get a letter in the mail that your place looks unkept and, you know, you've abandoned the lawn. And so the other day I noticed mine was getting a little high, and my garden has completely flaked on me and just disappeared off the face of the planet. And so I got out the weed eater and started weed eating my own lawn. And, as you know, with the hand and the surgery and the shoulder, it was a real test for me to see, well, can I do it? And, one thing led to another, and I ended up going absolutely berserk. I did the front, the side. I started weeding. I started getting around the back on the golf course side where there's some poor drainage, and a small lake is formed on the back side of the house. So I had to weed eat through that. And then I got to the side and realized that all these palms were growing up into the lanai, and that's how you get critters crawling around on your roof and in your roof. So just went berserk. I was out there for about 3 hours, and I finally put everything down and got all this crap on the front lawn ready to be taken by the local, utilities company. And I went to close my hand and it wouldn't even close. It had been locked into these three tools that I was using, a whippersnipper, as we call it in Australia, a hedge trimmer, a blower, and my hand had been locked into this grip type situation for multiple hours as I, hauled all this crap to the front. And I tell you, man, I feel like I was like a Navy SEAL, in Hell Week. I got a good buddy of mine that did that, and he said it was Hell Week. But I was in the garden for about 3 hours in 100-degree heat, and my hand ceased working. My back was aching. My legs were shot. I felt like I had never done a lick of manual labor in my life, and passed out about 9 o'clock last night.
They're putting you to work now, man. Now that you're feeling a little bit better, you got some lawn care to do.
Well, I know that today we got a little bit of a late start, and I know you've got to mow yours here shortly too.
Yeah.
So give me the update on your body holding up after surgery not that long ago, really.
Yeah, so today was actually day one back in the gym for me. So I haven't worked out in a structured way. Now I've done some at-home workouts, little body weight stuff here and there, but I haven't done a structured workout in about a year because this time last year is when I really hurt my neck and ended up having surgery last September. So with some gentle coaxing from Erica and getting me to get back into the gym scene, I actually went back to 5, and I'm doing a little trial at F5, which is a nice little gym with group fitness classes that's kind of technology based, circuit based training, 45-minute workouts. You get in, you get out, it's efficient. It's kind of like almost like a refined version of CrossFit a little bit. You're not doing some of the barbell stuff and technical lifts, but you're doing a lot of functional movements. And today was kind of an upper and lower body day, so I got all the upper and all the lower body I could want. And I walked out of there today, boy, just kind of like, I see why people don't go back. I see why people stop and just never go back because it's super hard to get started again. And I'm just hoping I can walk tomorrow when I wake up. My legs are so shot.
Now, to touch in on what you mentioned, though, a little bit of coaxing, have you struggled to want to get back into it, or have you just been cautious because of the surgery?
Yeah, struggled with motivation just because, I mean, well, if you go back to 180 days, it's even farther, but let's just say 2014, I've been working out nonstop for 10 years straight. And we're talking about daily workouts. I was working out twice a day for a period there for a number of years. I was doing 13, 14 workouts a week for a couple years, period. And, stuff, not taking rest days for 30, 45 days at a time, just crazy stuff. And I've been doing that for 10 years. And I think, maybe I just needed a break. So it's been about a year, like I said. And I struggled with motivation to get back into it. I had hurt my neck a little bit doing overhead movements. So I was a little tentative to that, although I did them today and they were fine. And um, yeah, it was kind of a struggle. So she every other day she'd be like, "Hey, did you call? Did you text F45 to get started?" I'm like, "No, not yet, not yet, not yet." So finally today was the day. So I was there at 7 a.m. this morning.
Do you think it's the knowledge of where you've been? And we've talked about this in a previous episode, and we've got some pictures up in a video that we put together for you at the very beginning. But, you were in some pretty serious shape. I mean, listen, there's a lot of people out there that can say, hey, I've worked out regularly for 10 years. There's a lot of people that can say that. But we're not talking about just regular, going in and checking a box. I mean, you were competing, you were, elevating yourself. You had your own gym, plural, at one point. So, I mean, you were in some serious shape, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so coming from that and knowing where I am now, it's a little tough mentally to stomach. Luckily physically I've maintained my shape just because my nutrition is so dialed in most days. I just eat the same things day in and day out. So I've been able to maintain my weight. I actually lost weight probably because of muscle mass. I've lost some muscle mass. So, I'm probably 10 to 12 pounds down of what I was back in my working out era a year ago. But yeah, it's tough, and like I see why people get nervous, and now on the other end of the spectrum, I see why people just don't go back because it's hard to get restarted on something when you've been out of it so long, and you do your first set of squats and you feel like your legs are on fire and you're going to fall over, and you got 30 more sets to do. It's man, you're just wondering if you're going to make it through without making yourself look like an idiot in there.
Do you feel that draw to get back to the type of conditioning and strength that you did have before? Is that there, or has things changed now that you've become a dad? Does it impact anything? Are you more driven now? Are you less driven?
Yeah, it's tough because I know the time it takes, and I also know the toll it took on my body to get to where I got. I dealt with a lot of not I wouldn't say I dealt with a lot of injuries, but I put a lot of pressure on my body, my hormones, my nervous system to get that fit. And it's almost like in the golf world, you know what it takes to get really good at golf. And if, at this point in my life, it's like, am I really going to put in that time? No, probably not. Right now, I'm just eyeing like, hey, if I can get in 2 workouts a week, that's a win for me. If I can go Mondays and Thursdays, for example, and get 2 solid workouts in a week, along with my nutrition and how it's dialed in, I think I can end up being in pretty good shape. And reap the rewards that I'm looking for now, which are just to, longevity, feeling better, looking good, and, just being there for my family.
Do you think there's a lot of pressure on people? I mean, you and I have been removed from the fitness business for several years now, both of us. Social media, the pressure people see on TV. Do you think there's this pressure to get to the shape of these images, these movie stars and celebrities too quickly, and so they feel like, wow, I can never make it, or it's going to take too long, and so they just never start? I mean, how do you see that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because like it's like that analogy of the mountain. When you're at the bottom of the mountain, you're looking up to the top. It's pretty easy not to even start. But if you just get a little bit of the way up, then it's like, okay, I can make it up. I can make it up a little bit further, a little bit farther, a little bit farther. And then eventually you reach that level years down the road or whenever it might be. But when you're at the bottom and you're looking all the way up and it seems insurmountable, it's like it has the same thing when you talk about goals, when any goal, even if it's not fitness related, when you think you're so far away from a goal, it's easy to not even try, not even to start, when really all you need to do, like we know, is start. All you have to do is get going at it. But yeah, I can see the intimidation factor, and especially being on the other end. So many years we were the gym owners trying to talk people into getting started, and now we're the ones that are, it's kind of funny how we've switched roles, and now we're the ones that are hesitant to get back into the gym, right? Because it's I get it. I totally get it. If I had to do things different, or if I had a chance to revamp things, it would probably be figuring out a better on ramp program for new people, right? Because even today, I just got thrown straight into that class, with 30 other people, and we're doing, split squats. I mean, I've got my back leg up in a ring, like, like the TRX rings. I've got my back toe in a ring, and I'm doing split squats out of this thing on my first day back. Now they'll tell you, "Oh, we can modify anything," but in the heat of the moment, it's like, "Hey, here's what you're doing," and everybody just seems to do it. And God bless the poor coach there. There's no way to coach 30 people in a group setting. You just can't do it. So I think what happens a lot of times is because you can't coach 30 people at once, you just give up and you don't coach anybody. So you see the coach just kind of floating around I call him like a zombie, just kind of like walking the aisles and, shouting out a couple random things every few minutes at nobody in particular. And, I've got probably a little bit more experience group coaching than you do, but you've almost got to treat it like you're a one-on-one coach, where you've got to try to have a touch point with each person at some point. And I think when you get a 30-person class, it's just overwhelming for a lot of coaches. So needless to say, I didn't have one single touch point the entire class with this guy that was coaching. It's kind of interesting. Hopefully he's not listening to the podcast.
Well, maybe we could look at it from the flip side. Maybe we hope that he is, because, that's something that you feel like, you were missing. And I always think back to the very first time that I stepped foot into a gym. And I thought about that particularly this week because, unbeknownst to me, I did not realize that you were going back. And I mean, you and I communicate a lot behind the scenes of this podcast, and you didn't mention it to me at all,
I,
which is fascinating, because now I kind of want to dig in on, why did you not say something, or, hey, Matt, are you doing it? Or, hey, I'm doing it, but I'm nervous. Or, why did you not bring this up? And now here, all of a sudden, we find that we both actually had our day one the same week.
yeah, yeah. So you went back
Completely.
Monday, right?
I did. And this entire podcast, for those that don't know, go back to the very first episode and hear about how we reconnected. And here we are now, 20 episodes in, celebrating our day one back into a gym, feeling like we really either, not necessarily don't belong, but feeling like everyone's looking at us, or Do they know that I know what I'm doing, but I don't look like I know what I'm doing? So do I have to prove myself, or do I just sit in the corner and mind my own business? Or what are they going to think, right? Our brain is going in absolute overdrive when at one point in the height of our careers, we're in incredible shape, both physically and strength wise, and had flourishing businesses and gyms and clients of our own, and never probably stopped to think, how are they feeling on their day one?
Yeah.
Right? It's an incredibly scary thought. And it's almost like you and I have both had this reset moment where something said, guys, I need you to just take a second here and just think about how the public feel right now, because research shows takes about 7 times for someone to get cracking. And I'm talking about, they're sitting at home, they get their workout gear on, they go to get to the car, and they're like, you know what? I'm not doing it. And they go back inside and they change and do something else. And then the next time, maybe they get in the car and they drive towards the gym and they take a detour because they see a sign and that's right, I needed to grab some groceries, and they never make it. Next time they get to the parking lot of the gym, but they don't go inside. The next time they walk up to the front door and they look in and everyone's in shape and someone's yelling in the microphone and training 30 people, right? And they watch and they're like, man, I can't put my foot in that ring and do a split, squat or lunge, and they don't go in. The next time they go in and they ask a few questions, but they're not ready, right? These are the things that people go through before they even get started, and some of them never actually make it in. And I found myself just this week pulling up to a place that I worked at, and was in management. I had a lot of clients, and I didn't want to go inside.
So crunch, right? That was your going back in to crunch this week?
Well, I was, and I've made that groundbreaking decision after all these months and episodes to get back in and reignite my fitness career. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, well, I mean, you got to walk the walk. Now, of course, I've battled the last 5 months because physically I've not been able to work my upper body. They don't want me to work the damaged side, and they certainly don't want me to work the good side, the left side, because I'll create an imbalance. And we all know the damage that that can create. And so really it's just been legs. But, for the first 3 months I was in a brace. I couldn't even use my right arm to open a jar of peanut butter, right? My hand wouldn't work. I couldn't even write my name for 3 months with a pen. And I just felt like what you've described, right? I just wasn't ready. And, I maintain a lot of fitness and health through my work as a carpenter for the last, 3.5 years since I've been in there, and coaching pickleball, which takes a lot of endurance, and it's a lot of fun for those that haven't done it. But I was coaching that on the side too, right? So I was able to maintain a pretty good level, like you described, right? I lost a lot of muscle mass, but that was okay. But walking back into the gym, I just had this moment of, wow, I'm back in '99, and I got connected with a buddy that was already working out back then, and I'd never been in a gym. At that time I was 20, 21. I'd never worked out in a gym in my life. And I remember he had started, he was ahead of me. He was getting into the bodybuilding side of things. He was getting up at 2 in the morning, having protein shakes and just eating all day and just trying to put on size. And so I joined this gym and I was terrified. And I had that feeling just wash over me again this week at a place again where I'd been and worked and had clients and been in management. And I had that same feeling just wash over me. You don't know what you're doing. You don't belong in here. People are going to be looking at you. People are going to be looking at you going, man, you've lost all this size. And what's wrong with your right arm? Like, you can see bone, like you've lost like all of it, legs. And for those that don't know me, you're going to be looking at me going, man, this guy needs some help. He needs a trainer, right? And it took me a while to get inside the front door, you know? And I remembered back to this first time back in '99 where I walked in and I start working out, and I remember that my buddy had said, "Listen, if you're ever bench pressing, never clip the plates on, because if you get into trouble, you can tip the bar, right, and you can slide the plate off, right?" So I've taken this concept with me into this gym. It's packed. And, for some unknown bloody reason, I decide I'm going to bench press, and, I get in there and I'm lying under this thing and I'm, cranking out a few reps thinking I'm all that, and I get stuck. And I can't remember the number of the plate that it was on there. Let's call it a 45 on each side, right? 20 kilos, 45-pound plate on each side. And I get stuck with this thing on my chest, and I'm looking around the room thinking, if I don't get help, I'm going to die, right? This thing is stuck on my rib cage. It's not going up. I can't move it anymore because you don't know what you're doing, right? And so I remembered what my buddy had said. And so I did. I tilted this thing, right? And I rocked it to one side to slide the plate off. Well, sure enough, the plate, it did slide off onto the floor. And I didn't even think about it. But of course, that means that there's a plate on the other side. And so all of a sudden, this barbell with this 45 goes bang to the other side. The entire room, right? This whole gym, stop what they're doing because the plate that I had slid off the first time is rolling across the gym floor, right? And people are literally stepping out of this way as this 45-pound plate rolls across the gym floor, and everybody knows where it came from because I've got this barbell, right, on a 45-degree angle because the other plate's dropped it in, and I'm sort of sitting up thinking, well, I'm not dead. I've just saved myself by doing this really smart thing, and everybody is now looking at me. And so that was my very first experience in a gym. And it was years and years later that I got into this fitness business. There's one of my little ones
Huh.
in the background there. I've got a blower in the background too, really trying to disrupt this
There you
moment here
go.
for me.
Yeah.
But that was my first moment, and I was afraid, I was horrified, I was embarrassed, and it was a few years later that I began my fitness career when I stepped away from my carpentry career to get into this, and I took that feeling and that experience with me to help others, knowing that it's a lot of work just to get in the building, and then when they're inside they really don't know what they're doing. And so I was able to lean in on that a lot, and I think over the last 25 plus years I've always remembered that story, but I think I've forgotten the feeling, right, until this week, where it was just a reminder. Hey Matt, if you're getting back into the business, don't forget what it's like for others, and how afraid they are, how judged they feel, whether they're overweight or too skinny or injured or whatever it is they're coming through those doors with. They're coming through with some baggage. And it was
Yeah.
a real wake up call. Hey, don't forget what they're feeling when they step in the door and how much courage it takes for them to ask for help and get a trainer and put their hands, their life in my hands. So it looks like we've both had that experience this week.
Yeah.
Hopefully it means you're getting back in the business with me.
I don't know if I'd go that far yet. So how'd it go? How'd it go in there on Monday? What'd you get into? What'd you work? How did it feel?
Well, I started by warming up, quote unquote, with some body weight squats. And the funniest thing about my body weight squats is that the body weight squats turned into the exercise because I did about 3 sets of 10 thinking I was warming up. But by the last set, I couldn't get back up.
Yeah.
And we're talking about body weight squats here, my friend.
Yeah.
Where there was a time where I could put a full barbell across my back, plates on each side, and I'm on a BOSU, right? An unbalanced orb, for those that don't know, doing full, pistol squats, one-legged suicide pistol squats off of this thing, and people walking past marveling. And here I am now doing body weight squats, and my glutes are screaming today. Yeah.
And I was doing dumbbell squats with 9-pound dumbbells this morning, and I was feeling it.
How the mighty have fallen.
Yep. It's a new era, right?
It really is. And I really think that, all these things are lining up for me to get back in. And I really do hope and pray that I'm brought the right people this go around. It's kind of like some of these TV shows and, movies that have never had a sequel or something like that. I almost feel like there's a real opportunity here where something hasn't been, looked at for a number of years, or it's gone, or people have forgotten. And, I've got a chance to reinvent it. And there are sequels that have bombed at the box office, or TV shows that have come back and they've failed, right? And so here I am really having to sit and contemplate, what does it look like for me to get back into this business after 3.5 years off, broken physically, emotionally, I'm changed. The last 5 months I've learned a lot by not even being in a gym. And, I'm hoping that I can kill it, crush it, kind of like, Top Gun, right? We didn't have a sequel for 3 decades. And then for the most part, everyone that's seen it says, man, nailed it, right? Crushed it. When there are others that have come out and it's been like, man, they should have left that alone. I'm really hoping and praying that the right people are brought onto my schedule. I can connect with those that are really in need, and I can be a smoother entry for them. Not back in, like you and I have both said, man, we're going back in, and this is how we feel going back in. Imagine someone that's never been in. I mean, you've had two gyms. Give me some examples of some people that have walked in and felt like everybody stopped and watched.
Yeah, I mean, I've had 300, probably 400-pound individuals come into the gym, and we've had to literally hold their hand and program special workouts, and just take it from ground zero. And talk about body weight squats. I mean, we would build up a medicine ball under a bunch of plates, and they would squat down about this far until they hit the ball and then come back up, and that was their squat rep. They'd three sets of 10, and they're jello. They're describing their legs as jello, and they're only moving this far. I'm holding up, a few inches on the screen. And that's when you really start to appreciate one-on-one training, right? Is when you can take someone from that to, a full depth squat, or a full range of motion in any sort of, and you see the progression as you lead them through it over the months and into the years. It's like, wow. And, at Brick House, we were fortunate enough to have some of those people come through and, trust us with their fitness. And, they're my favorite. I think I had a lot of coaches, and I don't know if they just didn't like the challenge, but it seems like a lot of coaches just want the athletes. They want the what I call the easy clients. I love the blank slates, the one that you have to build all the way up from the ground, and just take it from ground zero. It's pretty cool to me, especially with their confidence level and the mental, what they go through mentally as well as physically in the gym.
Would you say that the client you were just describing is one of your favorites?
Yeah. Yeah. That was always my favorite, was the person just starting out, or if they had a big hurdle to overcome, because you know how much it means to them, and they're there for a reason. They've obviously hit some sort of rock bottom that's propelled them to come in, and to see where they start and then to compare. That was one of the cool things we use in our gym a lot, just like you did, was metrics to compare. And it's like, wow, you can compare January of this year to March to June to August. And it's like, you can see the progress as they go.
Probably the longest client you worked with, from sort of start to finish.
Probably about 3 to 4 years for me, just because my span wasn't quite as long as yours in terms of owning the gym, and kind of some of the transitions we went through, like we've talked about in previous episodes. Changing the whole dynamic of what we were doing. But I've gotten to see a good 3 to 4 year transition, and it's pretty cool to have even that in that amount of time, to see what kind of transformation can be made.
There's a lot of people out there that I know, as I think about embarking on this career again, that will use the classic line of, "Oh, I just need some help learning the equipment." I'm sure that you've experienced those type of, phrasings. What do you say to those people that genuinely just want to get started, but I think the apprehension might be there to have guidance versus, no, just show me how to adjust them, and I'll kind of do it on my own.
Yeah, it's tough, right? You almost have to. For me, I always struggled to talk people into it. I usually got the people that had already tried it on their own and failed. They knew that about themselves, that they needed someone. That's usually the client that would come to us, is the one that they had already been to Crunch or Gold's Gym or Planet Fitness, and they knew that about themselves, that they just weren't going to get it done. And that was kind of where we took over. So I never really got great at the sales aspect of convincing somebody that they needed a trainer. And I know that's something you're gonna
Yeah.
have to do big time being in crunch coming up, right?
Unfortunately, we all have our likes and dislikes about the fitness industry. And, I've always liked the idea that as you build up your clientele, it's referral based and you get clients because others watch what they're going through and the changes that they're making. And, I'd love to be able to take the time to pull that off. But, for my own personal reasons of wanting to be the provider again and expectations of being at a facility, they want you to build up, a little quicker than being too picky or too slow. And so, yeah, I'll be in some environments where I'm going to have to try and help people get over the line. But I've got a different vantage point, even from the last 5 months, of how I want to approach that. And I really do want to be working with people that want to be working with me versus, talking someone into it. And the main reason that I feel that way is just simply because as I do get this chance to sort of reinvent the career and work with those that I feel like are brought to me, I have a different expectation now on who I'm going to be working with. I feel like I've been going through something specific for the last 5 months. We're not talking about just this bicep surgery and frozen shoulder that I'm still very limited on. We're talking about working through addictions. We're talking about overcoming and shedding the habits that we've had, and we've talked about that together with alcohol, pornography, and just our habits that have limited our progression and different walks of life. And so now I'm kind of getting back into this, going, wow, I've been through a major setback physically. I feel like I've really overcome some things that have slowed me down in the past, and I've got a different way to look through it, and I think that's going to help me attract the right clientele without me having to necessarily try and sell someone or get them over the line. I think in the past I might have tried to expose them on day one. Hey, they think they can do it on their own. Watch this. And you put them through a series of exercises that are not endangering them, but they're going to wake up the next day and not going to be able to move. And you kind of want to plant that seed. I got you. Watch this. You think you could do it on your own. And not in a spiteful way, but just in a, let me expose you to what you think you do or don't know. And so now I will probably still want to help them see the value in having some help, but I'm going to do it from a real place of understanding that comes from the heart, comes from the mind. And listen, they're in the situation that they are because of things that have held them back, whether it be addictions or fear, anxiety, finances, doesn't matter. There's a reason why they haven't stepped foot in. There's a reason why they maybe are in there but haven't seen progress. And they might have been working out on their own for a year and they're watching trainers from the side, right? I've had that happen. And eventually they come up to you and say, I want to work with you. And I've been watching you, right? So I truly believe the Almighty's going to bring me the right people for this 2.0 career. And I'm excited by that. Hopefully, the place that I'm joining forces with sees the value in me being patient about it, and that I'll get the right people to get the right results to make the right change in those lives, and change my life too, which I'm pretty excited about to see how I go through this now and approach it from a different aspect. While training is important, yes, I want to help people really overcome, and I'm pretty pumped to take in some things that I've learned from you and through this process, a lot of material and books that I've read and being able to overcome some things of my own to really help them overcome sooner rather than later so that they can really dig in on achieving what they really could be without it taking years and years and years to see any progression.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I'm excited to hear how it goes. So you're starting next week. You said you got some training to do and kind of get onboarded with them, and then, I'm sure after the first week or so, you'll start building up your client list. And so if anybody's listening to this in the Bradenton area, right, it's the come see Matt at the Crunch Fitness after this week.
Yes, sir. I've got a couple of days left. I'm still waiting for my glutes to recover to get back in there and give those legs another crack, and you'll see me working my shoulder and trying to get this arm up above my head. And it's been a real fear of mine the last couple of months. What would it look like for me to be back in there? And I've had a few people around me, and the manager there has really encouraged me. Listen, you've got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and as you recover, you're going to lead a few people out too, but don't let that hold you back. Don't let your physical appearance and your mobility issues stop you from realizing that you've got a lot to give, and your comeback itself is going to be a testimony. So I'm kind of cautiously excited as I embark back in on this, and I'll have some updates moving forward on what that looks like, but I'm driven now. I did not realize you had your day one too, so you and I are now somehow gonna find a way to compete with each other. And I always miss that. Shout out to my number one trainer back at 180 Fitness was Robert Fry. He was an absolute robot. I used to question, look for a red dot in his eye to see if he was an actual human or not. But the man was a machine. And for years, we trained out religiously together, every day, for weeks, months, years on end. And, his job was to stay ahead of me because he didn't want to be caught in anything, whether it be sprinting, lifting, endurance, skiing, rowing, reps, sets, doesn't matter. He was absolutely driven to stay ahead of me, and I was absolutely, a few years older than him, but driven to reel him in. And so together we pushed each other to new heights and got to the point where I feel like I was unstoppable and could take on anybody at any time in any area of health and fitness. And I think we need that. I've always wanted to work with a trainer. I've always liked having someone to push me beyond my limits, and he did that. And I think I pushed him beyond his limits quite often too. I'd end up outside in the bushes hurling, and that bastard be inside, wrapping up another set. I think there's a lot of value in having someone in your life push you beyond the limits, and I think that's where the value of having a trainer comes in. Not only that, but the financial accountability. Hey, I'm paying for this now, right? And I think that's where sometimes people say, well, I can't afford it. And I will rebuttal, well, can you afford not to? Can you really afford not to have help? We pretty much most things in our lives, because we don't know what we're doing. If you have an electrical issue, you get an electrician out. You have a roof issue, you don't re-roof your own home. There's so many things. Plumbing, right? You don't go near plumbing. You get that wrong, you're in real trouble. You can mess up the house, flood the basement or the second floor if you've got three, right? It doesn't matter. There's so many things in our lives that we just call and get help for. And I think training is just one of those things that everybody thinks they can Google it, they can get the programs offline, they can watch some guy on a YouTube channel and figure it out. And in all reality, I'm here to tell you that you can't. You really do need accountability. And I think I've said this in a previous episode, but every professional athlete on this earth has a trainer in their team. You look at Novak Djokovic, who's just, for tennis watchers and players, reached the semifinals. The guy's 38 years old, and he's going to be playing Alcaraz again. I think it's 21 maybe. And it's going to be an incredible semi-final at the US Open here. And you watch this guy, he's 38. You think he's out there doing it on his own with a YouTube channel?
Nope.
He's probably got a fleet of fitness professionals pushing him to be able to compete every other day for 3 to 5 hours on court for 2 weeks straight,
Probably
right? And these
so.
golfers, look at these golfers. They used to be these big round belly that have a cigar at the turn, and after 18 they'd have a few beers. Am I right?
Not anymore.
It's just not what it is anymore. These guys are professional athletes. They look the part. They're physical. They're strong, and they're walking 4 rounds for week in, week out, and they've got to be able to perform. And if their physical side breaks down, they can't produce what they need to compete at that level. For those that think, I've got this on my own, I don't need help, I'm here to tell you, you've lost your brain. And that's even to you, and it's even to me, right? I want to get help as soon as I can. I'm going to be getting some help. I'm going to find the right person that's going to carry me through in the gym. I'm already working with a specialist on my shoulder, and he's a genius. And I love working with him. And he's working on getting me back into the gym. So he's fantastic. He's over at Tideline. A little shout out to Dr. Michael Sclafani there at Tideline. And he's an incredible human being, compassionate and knowledgeable, and really getting me back up and running so that I can even consider this career, 2.0. So lots to work on, my friend. I would dearly love it for it to be you. I'm still praying that your wife gets an offer to move over here to the Sarasota region and we can reunite, and you can be the guy that I'm chasing as hard as I did with Fry back in the day.
Yeah, man, you never know. That could be the ticket. All right, guys. Well, like, subscribe. Your homework this week is if you're not the one who needs to hear this, send it to somebody who is in desperate need of some fitness or has been thinking about getting back into the gym, has been hesitant like Matt and I were. who just hasn't been able to pull the trigger, this is the perfect message for them to hear. Shoot it to them, have them give it a listen, and maybe it just pushes them over the edge like it did for us to be able to get back into the gym and get started again or get started for the first time. So, Matt, I'm pumped for us, brother. It's going to be a good week, and best of luck as you get started on the new journey next week. And hopefully we'll be back with another episode and have a nice guest on the show next week.
Yeah, we've got a handful lined up and some scheduling issues, but stand by, guys. We've got a lot of really good testimonies coming up. So hang in there, guys. Ryan, always a pleasure to be here with you, mate. Appreciate you and all the work you do behind the scenes to get this podcast up and on YouTube. For those that don't already know that, he's the man that puts it all together. So thanks again, mate. And for everyone out there, stay strong, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Cheers.
See you guys.